First, let me apologize for the terrible audio quality. I'm using a broken headset, so just bear with me as we go through this. So basically what I want to show you here is how we would build a mouse interface for your applications. And we're going to work with finding the coordinates of the mouse, and hopefully we can get into moving objects on the screen. So I've created this BlueJ project called MouseLab and a basic file called MouseLab. And what I'm going to do is fill out this project to have everything that we need. So you do want to start with the basic template, so public class MouseLab, and then the code block to store all of the functions. And we need two basic functions to start with: public MouseLab with its code block and the public static void main. Now your BlueJ should automatically populate these. If it doesn't, go ahead and convert the file to be like this. Next, we have to build the window that we're going to be working in. In order to do that, we start with two import files at the top. So the import files that we're going to need are import java.awt.star and then import javax.swing.star. Now those are the ones we need to create the window. I want to go ahead and import the third one we're going to need in order to have the mouse interaction, which is java.awt.event.star. And that will give us the mouse interaction. Okay, so the next step is to actually build the window. And you'll notice that I'm going to do this in iterative process. So I'm going to try a little bit and then see if it works. So the first thing I want to do is build the window. So I'm going to extend my MouseLab from jpanel. It'll be extends jpanel, and that will let me build the window that I'm going to be drawing into. Now, in order to build that window, what I want to do is go into the constructor for MouseLab. Remember that the constructor has the same name as the class name, which is the same as the file name. So I'm going to go into the constructor, and then I need to actually physically build the window. So jframe, and then give the frame a name, equals new jframe, and then you can put a title for the window here. So here I'm going to say MouseLab as the title of this window. Okay. And then I want to do a few things with this. Actually, before I do that, I need a line before to set some properties for our window. So the first thing I want to do is set my preferred size, new dimension, and I'm going to create a 800 by 600 window. Okay, and then set background color, just set background, and then new color. Actually, I don't even need to create a new. I'm just going to do color dot. Let's do black. Right, and the reason why I'm setting a background is to make it easier to see what we're doing. Alright, now that I've done that, the next thing I need to do is to actually add the panel that we just created to our frame. So I'm going to say frame.getContentPane.add this, and the this refers to the panel that we're creating right now. So the MouseLab panel is what we're working on, and we say, what are we working on? We're working on this. So the this refers to that MouseLab panel that we're creating, and that's why we can refer to it that way. So I'm going to add that to the frame, and I'm going to do frame.pack, and that basically makes the window shrink around our panel. Frame.setDefault, and you don't need this part, but we do it for convenience. Set default close operation jframe.exit on close, and make sure to watch your punctuation on that. If you're not sure and it's hard to see in the video, go ahead and look this up in the Java API. All of the information will be there for you to look at. And then finally, I need to set the frame visible. So frame.set visible, and I want to say true. I want to be able to see that frame. And I want to do one more thing here. I'll actually do two more things. If you're working in JCreator, you'll have the main method. Go ahead and say new MouseLab in there, and then we won't need to touch the main method again. We just need it constructed. If you're working in BlueJ, you don't actually need that. We'll be able to construct the MouseLab object directly. Alright, the last thing we need is a paint component method. So public void paint component graphics G. Alright, so some of you may be used to creating a paint method for your graphics. The reason why we use paint component, and also why we use this frame.getContentPane, is the JFrame does something for us automatically that we would not normally have. You may have written programs where you've seen a lot of flicker. What we're going to do is we're going to create something called a double buffer, and I don't want to get too deep into what that is, but essentially it's going to repaint the screen for us very quickly so that we won't get as much flicker. Now we might still, but if we do, it won't be because of the screen drawing, it'll be because we need to optimize our code. We may have something that's just operating too slowly, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I do need this paint component method, and the first thing I want to do in there is a super.paint component and give it that graphics context that we passed in, this graphics G. Alright, so I'm going to compile this. Alright, I've had an error in my code there. Compile again. No errors. So let's go ahead and test ours. So in BlueJ you can just say new mouse lab. You don't have to go pull the main method. So new mouse lab, click OK, and there's our mouse lab. Alright, so we got a big old black screen. Alright, so now that I have this, the next thing I want to do is I want to the next step, we'll go ahead and just say where is the mouse on the screen. Okay, so we'll be able to use that for coordinates, which will be useful if you're building an application and you want to see where the mouse is. So you say, I want to put a square right here. What is that pixel location? So let's go ahead and initialize that pixel location. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to add a mouse listener to this so that we can actually see where the mouse is. So what we do is we come back to our class definition where it says public class mouse lab. We've extended from the JPanel, which basically means mouse lab is a JPanel, so it gets all the features of being a JPanel. But now we want to add one more feature, and we want to say that we are going to implement or implements the mouse motion listener class. And what that's going to do for us is it's going to give us the information we need to actually have mouse interaction. Alright, I'm going to compile it, and the reason why I'm compiling it is I want to get these errors down here. And you say mouse lab is not extract and does not override abstract method mouse moved. Alright, so the reason why I did that is because this implements is kind of like a contract. It tells us what we need to know in order to build that thing. So when we compile it, it'll tell us, hey, you don't have this, you need that in order for this to work. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add that function, public void mouse moved, and that takes a mouse event object. And again, if you're not sure, look up mouse motion listener in the Java API, and we'll call that mouse, and you'll see how these things are actually implemented and built. So I've implemented the mouse moved function now. Okay, and let's compile and see if it needs any more. It does. It needs a mouse dragged, and we're actually going to take advantage of that mouse dragged function in the future. I want to move something on the screen, and we're going to use the mouse dragged functionality in order to do that. Alright, so we have our two mouse functions. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to actually add the mouse listener, and we're going to add it to the panel. So here's how we do that. Say this dot mouse motion, or add mouse motion listener to this. Okay, now we need to do one more thing in order to make this work. Well, it's actually going to work right now. If I compile it and run it, it'll actually do things, but we won't actually see any feedback from the mouse. So let's go ahead and get some feedback, and what I want to do is I want to create a pair of instance variables. So in the mouse lab, I'm going to create two variables, int mouse x and mouse y. And let's go ahead and default these values to 0. And what we're going to do is every time we move the mouse, I want to set that value. So go to the mouse moved function and say mouse x equals mouse.get x with a capital X. And we want to do the same thing for y. So mouse y equals mouse.get Y. Okay, so now we're capturing the location of the mouse when we move it. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to repaint the screen. And what this is going to do is every time we move the mouse, it will repaint the screen. So we'll be able to determine something. Now what we want to do now is, now that we've moved the mouse, we want to see where is that mouse on the screen. So we're going to create a string that stores that information. So let's call it mouse location. I'm going to call mine mlock. Okay, and I'm going to take advantage of the string format function. This is a pretty cool little tool where it lets us build a string that looks a certain way. So I'm going to do string.format, and in literal quotes, parentheses %d, comma, %d, parentheses, and then double quotes. And then what this says is I have two variables that are integers, and I'm going to store values in there. So I'm going to store my mouse X and my mouse Y using this interface. And then I want to draw the string to the screen. So I'm going to set a color. So let's say color.yellow. That's nice and bright against black. And then g.drawString, and we'll draw this in the upper corner. So I'm going to draw this M location. Okay, and it may actually be draw text. I'll try this, and if it doesn't work, we'll try draw text. So it's draw string. Okay, and let's go ahead and test the lab. Okay, and here's my function, and you see when I move the mouse, it updates the location. So up here should be 0, 0. Almost get to it, but not quite. And then down here it should be somewhere around 800, 600. Okay, so this is where we start, and this is a good location to start at to start building your applications, to know where your mouse is on the screen so that we can start interacting with things on the screen. So go ahead and get yours built. Go back and rewind through the video so that you can get the code, and go ahead and just show it here again. So pause it, and you can do. So I have my 3 import statements here. The AWT, Java X, don't forget the X, swing, AWT event, okay, and then we have the public class mouse lab extends JPanel, which implements the mouse motion listener. And then we have 2 instance variables here, mouse X and mouse Y, and we're starting them both at 0. And then we have our constructor, mouse lab. And in the constructor, the first thing we do, the first 2 things are setting up the JPanel. So we're setting the preferred size, and you can use any size you like. I went with 800 by 600. Set the background. Here we're setting the background to black. And then we add the mouse motion listener to this panel. And then we create the window. So we create the JFrame, frame equals new JFrame with mouse lab. And then get the content pane to add this panel to it. Pack the window, set the default close operation so it knows what to do when we click on the X, set the screen to visible. Okay, and then we have the mouse moved function, public void mouse moved, mouse event mouse, where we're capturing the X and Y locations and storing them on our instance variables, and then repainting the screen. The mouse dragged function, which we're not using yet, but it is required, and we'll use this later. And then the paint component method, where we call the parent paint component method using super.paintComponentG, and then we create the string where the mouse X and mouse Y are using string format function, set the color to yellow, draw the string to the screen, and then finally we have the main method in case you're using JCreator to create your application. Alright, so again, you'll want to go through, implement this class, and test it out.